Hello, everyone, and welcome to On Point, presented by Chicago Communicator News Media. Today we have Ms. Andrea Rayla speaking about property tax exemption, Ted Dabrowski on pension and retirement rights, and Anthony Travis on the Illinois Constitution on Article 9, Section 1, Article 7, Section 12, and Article 10, Section 1. First, we're going to start with Ms. Andrea Rayla.
Hi, thank you for having me out today. I'm a longtime tax consultant, and I used to work at the Cook County Board of Tax Appeals. Wanda, how much minutes do I have to introduce myself, or should I just get right into it?
Just get right in.
Okay. So having worked there, I started my own tax consulting firm, and I used to work for Harold Washington in his taxpayer advocate office. And we've done a study about the exemptions in Cook County primarily. These are exemptions that the entire state gets, but Cook County is what we focused on. And what we learned about these exemptions, two of the most important ones that give you the biggest bang for your buck, is the senior citizen freeze exemption and the long-time homeowners exemption. And with the senior citizen freeze exemption, we looked at all of the tax dollars that were cut and given property tax breaks from all the way from 2018 all the way back to 2008. So over a 10-year period. And we divided the city, and we looked at the city of Chicago, then we looked at the northwest suburbs as one district, and then the southwest suburbs as another district. And these three districts, we looked at how many people got this money and got these tax breaks. What we found out is that they are giving senior citizen freezes to people who have $2 million, $3 million, $8 million homes. Now, to get the senior freeze, you have to be 65 and you have to make only $65,000. Now, I ask you, can you be a senior citizen and own a $5 million home where the tax bill for the last 10 years has been over $100,000 a year, but you get the senior citizen freeze and you get $25,000 taken off your tax bill, which just still brings the tax bill down to $75,000? How can you have a 8,000 square foot mansion worth that kind of money and get the senior freeze because you say you're making $65,000? So the problem with the senior freeze is that it never capped how much value that home has. So there's all kinds of magic being used to figure out how I can only say I'm making 65 if I own a $2 million home. And so we looked at all of that money that went out. And in the city of Chicago, for the last 3 years, the tax breaks in the city of Chicago for all the senior citizen exemptions added up to $840 million. Okay. Now, in the Northwest District, which is Barrington, Evanston, Glencoe, Kenilworth, all of the wealthy areas, they got around $433 million. But the south suburbs, they got the least. They got $400 million. The point I'm making is that these exemptions were created for one reason: to help the most vulnerable, to help senior citizens who were 65, living in a $100,000 home, or it might be even just a $500,000 home, that they get that money taken off their bill so that they're the most vulnerable and they need that tax break. It was never meant to go to multi-million-dollar homes, and that's been going on for 11 years. Millions of dollars given to the wealthiest 1% of Cook County homeowners, and it's a tragedy. Then there's another exemption called the long time exemption, It's sunsetting, but all you had to do is say that I lived there for 11 years and I'm going to be gentrified out. And if you make $100,000 or 75,000 to 100,000 during this time, you could get a big property tax break. So we looked at where did this go? It should be for the most vulnerable, for those, it doesn't matter the age, but if you live there 10 years or 10 or more years, they give you a break. Well, we broke it down to the city of Chicago in the last 11 years. And in those 11 years, about 57% of the tax breaks went to Chicagoland, $410 million. Now in the Northwest, Kenilworth, Glencoe, Winnetka, Barrington, about 185 million went in tax breaks to them, or 28%. And then you got the South suburbs, okay? You got 17 townships where the majority of the Black and brown community live in the highest foreclosures, and not only that, owning their homes. And they get 17% of those exemptions and about 174 million. So you got the city getting, at least the largest share, 57%, the suburbs of northern suburbs getting 26%, and then 17% going to the Black and white community in the
How
South.
does that happen?
That is wrong because they did not, again, cap the value of the home. And there was a lot of little things going on. These are massive tax breaks. All the tax breaks that you get through exemptions add up to $1.8 billion.
Whoa.
And those two exemptions that I talked about gave the most, and especially the senior freeze gives the most away. $25 million was given away in senior freeze to these multimillionaire property owners. And all we have to do is change the law. We have to change the law, but nobody's advocating it. And I want to just say this. These are important studies. Tax doctor Anthony Travis is on our board. He knows these are true studies, that they're reliable. When we submitted them to the assessor's office, his comment to the news reporter was, they're not reliable.
Oh.
But this is data that we downloaded from the assessor's website.
But it's not reliable.
Took it from the assessor's website. And we got some of the smartest research people from different schools, and they put it together. And would I put my name out, or I put Anthony Travis's name out as somebody they're not reliable with this? This has got to stop. We've got to know that we got to spend our tax dollars on the most vulnerable people and pour those breaks into that community and take those breaks away from people that have multi-million-dollar homes.
Oh.
Hey, Andrea, this is Grady, can I ask you a question? You've mentioned that laws need to be changed. Are you talking about down in Springfield, down in Cook County? I mean, and then when you talk about the cap, who can make that cap whatever it is that it needs to be in terms of legislation?
The first thing is the assessor's got to admit that there needs to be reform in those two exemptions. He's got to say, yes, it's wrong. You're giving away millions of dollars of tax breaks to the most wealthiest people. And he should raise his hand and say, I'm for changing that tax exemption. He can do it within the Cook County Board, but he has to also really go to the state level and make those changes and say, I'm advocating for this. But he has said the study is unreliable. An ABC reporter went to him and asked him to interview him. And he said, I'm not going to be interviewed because it's unreliable. That's not someone who's advocating for real reform, especially for the Black and brown community. And it's been going on too long, for 11 years, and nobody's addressed it. And so
We have a question.
Andrea, I have a question. Okay, now when you say that a person has to earn 65,000 and less, we both know how that actually can happen. Even if you're affluent, you can actually meet that criteria because of what we call with earning. Okay, So I understand how that happens.
It's a loophole.
Yes, ma'am. And that loophole, I'm not even sure how they can close that, because you are able to still be affluent and earn 65,000 or less. I mean, but here's the other thing: are we not informing those individuals, like you said, with the $100,000 homes, or with the $75,000, $200,000 homes, who really need that tax break or that freeze? I mean, why are they? Have we looked into why they are not applying? Because my neighbor, and I owned a home years ago. I wouldn't own another home. It's good to be free, but she had it. But and she only got it because her niece worked there and told her about the tax freeze. I remember she had it years and years ago, and she had it until she died. And that was one of the things. I used to be a beat facilitator, and I talked about it at my beat meeting. And when she came up and she told me, she said, I just heard about this from my niece, and she was a senior when she purchased her house. She qualified for the freeze immediately because she was over 65 when she purchased the home. And she had not been told, but had been in the home like 2 or 3 years before she was able to take advantage. And I'm just wondering how many people, remembering when I would talk to folks, they didn't know anything about the freeze.
Right. So there should be an aggressive campaign to make sure that all these people that have $100,000, $200,000 homes, 50, that they know about this senior freeze. But I'll tell you who does know. They don't audit the piece of paper that you fill out. You get one sheet of paper. You say, I make $65,000, and you fill it out. They don't even ask for the tax return, and it goes through. That they're not auditing it. You can't tell me that somebody can make $65,000, but they're able to get their tax bill down from $100,000 to $90,000. Do you know what it takes to run a house like that? $90,000 to pay the tax bill. But where's she getting the money? Because she's only making $65,000. That needs to be changed. The way they talk about, how much you should make. She's living off a trust fund. So she doesn't have to report that, but that's not right. And they need to work at it. I wish I could show you this. This is a $2 million restaurant in Chicago. $2 million. This person has supposedly an income of $65,000. And his tax bill on 2 apartments above, he lives in one, and he runs a fancy French restaurant, which of course now is having hard times. But his tax bill is now reduced. It used to be around $45,000, and he gets $30,000 off on the senior freeze.
Oh, wow.
His tax bill is only $6,000, and he gets that off. And that's just one example. There are hundreds and thousands of examples. So it needs to be revamped, and we need to get them to listen to us and not say that our studies don't have any weight.
Thank you, Andrea, for making that so clear. I know you guys got questions.
Well, I'm going to just let you know that in 1 minute, I've got to turn my oven off.
Wanda,
Yes.
before we proceed with any questions, let me throw this out here first. We have a 62-page report that was done by the Governor Pritzker Property Tax Relief Task Force, the Social and Economic Disparity Subcommittee, which Representative Mary Flowers was our chairman. And the people that contribute to this report was Anthony Travis, the tax doctor, Reverend Fellows, Dr. Felice Binion, Lakita Colquitt, Clifford Graham, Glenda Fulton, Anton Seal Sr., Obie Warlaw, Tori Robinson Smith, Justina Winfrey, and attorney William Brown. Now, when we had the legislative hearing at Truman College, Andrea Rella testified at the hearing. And so out of the hearing came our report. And what she talked about was what we put in our report called the Social and Economic Disparity Subcommittee chaired by Representative Mary Flowers, and the Assessment and Exemption Subcommittee recommend that the legislature restructure the long-term occupant homestead exemption to assist residents in rapidly gentrifying areas. It is worth noting that this gentrification predominantly affects communities of color. Now, one of the key issue with that exemption, we need to get rid of it. Because if you getting an exemption on your property every year, why are you waiting 10 years to file for an exemption? That makes no sense.
And is that exemption then retrospect? Does it go back?
Is it retroactive?
Probably so,
Oh.
because the millionaires have been taking advantage of the issue, and only 2% of the population even get that exemption. Okay, 2%, and then as Andrea pointed out, most Black folks ain't getting that
At all.
10-year exemption at all. Okay.
Well, it's probably like Sandra said, they don't know about it.
Right, and that was my question. So is more of the priority to get the information into the households of the Black and brown community and let them now join forces with the I guess the contributors who have gone forward, because you have strength in numbers. And I think if you can get that into the household, I don't care if it's a mass mailer, a robocall, or whatever you had to do.
Well,
the knowledge would be the power that you guys need, because you would have more people behind the movement. Have you guys thought about that?
Yeah, we thought about that, but the problem is this: we need some of this stuff we need to get rid of. Okay, we was gonna try to play a clip from the governor from his State of the State address.
Property taxes in Illinois are simply too high. And that's why it's time to put the best ideas to work from both sides of the aisle. Local governments continue to max out their levies even when they don't need to. There are perverse incentives in state law that encourage that. We can change the law to support local governments and lower property taxes. And with nearly 7,000 units of government in Illinois, it's time to empower local taxpayers and voters to consolidate or eliminate them.
Now, this 62-page document is probably one of the most important reports that Springfield have seen. And today at 2 p.m., the legislature had the committee meeting, and House Bill 7 was on the docket.
In the lame duck session, state lawmakers discussing a new controversial criminal justice reform bill put forth by the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus.
This is a big problem, and it requires a bold response. House Bill 163 is now amended, is a bold response.
The proposed legislation includes ending cash bail, expanding police training on use of force, and prohibiting chokeholds. It also requires the maintenance of police misconduct records and the use of special prosecutors in officer-involved deaths.
This is a comprehensive, bold, transformative initiative to reform the way we look at criminal justice, violence reduction, and police accountability across the state of Illinois.
Some law enforcement groups have been critical of the bill.
We know we're not perfect. No profession or person is. We respectfully request that you not proceed with this legislation and allow us the opportunity to share our experiences in developing effective policy.
The Illinois State's Attorneys Association also expressing their disapproval. They say it will profoundly undermine public safety and overturn long-standing common sense policies and practices in the criminal justice system. But Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox coming out in support of the legislation today. saying the spirit of Illinois House Bill 163 is meant to build trust in police departments across Illinois while addressing long-needed problems to alter unfair criminal justice policies rooted in systemic racism that result in our jails and prisons being disproportionately occupied by Black and brown individuals.
By Representative Rita Mayfield out of Waukegan. Now, she got slapped around today by some of the folks who don't want to see change. We have 856 school districts that's costing us $18 billion a year. Then you have 8 property tax exemptions, and the one that's hurting us is the long-term exemption, because the wealthy folks are taking advantage of that. And with the COVID policy, Fritz Cagey, as Andrea pointed out, is using that to give these folks a $25,000 property tax windfall come the second installment come August of this year. That's when these folks don't get that big windfall.
25 million.
$25 million.
Now, check this out. What Andrew is letting us know, that when they get this money, the county, the assessor, they're going to have to look around and make up that difference. And that's where we come in there. They're going to raise the value of our property. Now, they're going to overinflate our property. Then they're going to overtax us. Now, the title of the discussion tonight is called The Tax Divide. The Tax Divide was done by ProPublica and the Chicago Tribune. You can go to YouTube and put in The Tax Divide. It's a 4-part series that give a chronological background on how we got here. Now, 3 days ago, Jason Grotto, who's helped do the first study, also did a study with Bloomberg newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
We lost $2.2 billion coming from Professor Christopher Berry from the University of Chicago. He also said it was the worst case of institutional racism he ever seen. So Dr. Berry said, let's take this situation national. So what did they find out? That the Black community have lost $500 billion by our property being overtaxed, our property overvalued, over excess, and we were hoping that the Black Caucus, Sandra Harper, would have been on tonight. Hopefully, we'll try to get her on within the next couple of Wednesdays, because she needs to come back. So now we're in a situation that this issue of our property being overtaxed is all over the country.
Not just in
Folks,
Illinois.
This is not
Right.
a issue.
Right.
Of Illinois.
And-
It happened in Detroit.
Yeah,
New
but
Orleans,
it's like
New
a
York.
cancer, and it's spreading, and we have to find the remedy to stop this cancer from spreading. I mean, it's a shame it was in Illinois. It's equally a shame that it's spreading across every state, and it affects our Black and brown people. We've got to find the solution to this.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Roxy, this is great.
We know the solution. Go ahead.
We call ourselves elected guy.
Who's speaking?
It's Grady. It's Grady.
Grady. Okay, go ahead.
I'm still playing. I'm still trying to figure out how to do all this Zoom stuff. But anyway, we elect a so-called reformer called KG, right?
Right.
I think I heard Andrea say that he's no better than the dude that we just replaced.
Well, that's
Oh,
true.
wow.
That's true.
So we could have kept Barrios then.
Oh, God.
At least Barrios, at least we know he was gonna do it. But KG come in talking about here reformer. I mean, come on, y'all. We got to really start putting our political hat on to make sure.
Yeah.
I just want to say something. This is Sandra. Okay, when taxes are assessed, you get the opportunity to appeal your assessment. And
Correct.
Andrea, I want you to jump in here because I haven't did this in a while, but I did do some things with some folks and regarding this. In addition, many a times when our property is assessed at, it's not the true value of our property.
Correct.
It is considerably lower than what our property's market value is. Your market value and your property assessment value are two different things.
Exactly.
And what I'm hearing here is, one, you need to have a plan. I'm one of the people coming from a DOD environment. Don't bring me a problem without a solution.
Amen.
Now I'm hearing the problem, but I'm also, you all are talking about the problem, and sometimes you're talking about the solution too, but you're not presenting it as a solution. When someone tells you he don't want to talk to you, I can't sit down, this is inaccurate, then what you have to show him are the demographic proof. Because if we got this information, why did we not have the demographics to go with that? The racial demographics. We should have also had enough with the age, because I do know that the assessor's office, based on information that they gather, which they do say is not always, they've always used that line, that it was not accurate. What was his name? Rose, he was out there long. Remember him? Sweet guy, great guy. But again, a lot of the stuff is not accurate because they don't make you show proof when they take this tax assessor stuff. A lot of this stuff is taken off your mortgage information, and they're hoping at that time that that person or those persons have gotten accurate information regarding this owner. But as we know, things change. People lie. So again, we've got a situation here where we need to bring in information to those that we want to change to show in black and white. What it can't tell us is inaccurate. It's like you're saying, we're pulling this information off your database and it's showing again, and we can take it in, we can show the title companies, which again, everybody can see it. It's free information. This is what they have. So it's got to be accurate, because now you're saying that they're doing inaccurate information. So now we're saying you're doing illegal loans. I mean, it get real ugly if someone keeps saying it's inaccurate. Okay. And then at that time, propose to them what we are suggesting that we do. Why do you not put out, again, be it rolling calls, have people go door to door, especially since it's seniors, 65 and over. And imagine from this last year, going on 2 years now, where if you were 65 and over, you haven't gone anywhere. You can't even get your taxes done, frozen, or anything else because of COVID. So you're sitting there suffering in silence, more or less. So they need to have a process, because COVID ain't going away. It's not going away right away. And we need to have a process where someone is talking to these people and get to these people. I love what Maria Pappas did last week.
Yeah,
I think she should have did it a long time ago.
Right, but that comes from
a long time. It's long overdue, and they need to bring it back. And I see she kept it open for 3 days last week, but that isn't enough. That wasn't enough.
Came from the pressure of it. And see, I'm equally concerned as we go down this, as we spiral down this thing. You know, I'm one that advocates for our young people to take their tax money, begin to think about stop renting, being homeowners. But if they are going to inherit these kind of problems, we got to get this fixed.
There you
before
go.
we take another generation of people into this.
When you hear it, well, that's the thing. We don't want to, for seniors, it is the determinant whether I give up my house or not. For young people, it's not that big of a deal. It's just a matter of, again, not going out for a few nights, during the course of the year, because they're making the money. You got the 2 incomes. You don't have the
understand that it's still the like I always tell people, you got to put some respect on our name. We're still homeowners, and they would still be homeowners. Just hear me out. And if we don't we are already leaving our young people a broken system. We know this is a problem. And I'm saying before, because they are coming to that point whether they are having children and they need to come out of apartments and into homes. And that's the conversation that's on the street. But it is our responsibility, knowing that we've got to loop these books and get the laws changed in order for there to be
But
equity
you have
in
to
any
come to a
community they live
politician
in.
with a plan. You have to come to a politician with a plan.
Come on
And
now.
if you're not bringing in that plan, you're not going to get anything.
Well,
and
let me-
this is what has to stop
Sandra.
happening.
We got
Sandra.
we got Miss Justina. You want to say something? You're trying to say something? You got your hand up.
Yeah, she.
I am. Thank you
Okay,
so
go ahead,
much.
Justina.
God bless everyone.
Go ahead, huh?
We have a plan, and I can reference you to justinawinfrey.com, Illinois Property Tax Relief, Facebook, Illinois Property Tax Relief.
All right. Put it
We have a plan.
Put it in the chat.
Okay.
When you get done, go ahead. Keep on.
We have a plan. The plan and public policy recommendations have been published and given to the state legislators. Several members of the Black Caucus for the state of Illinois were on the subcommittee for Governor Pritzker's Illinois Property Tax Relief. Brother Reven Fellows from the National Black Agenda brought the group together to advocate on behalf of Rep. Mary Flowers, who chaired the subcommittee. Brother Anthony Travis led, Brother Anthony Travis, the tax doctor, led the issue and put it at the forefront of the education system. So when we talk about the plan, we know what the issues are. We have the recommendations. We need it for the people, Sister Sandra, to really understand how the problem occurred, where it started. And ironically, even going back before the 1970 Illinois Constitutional Convention, and I encourage everyone to review the Illinois Property Tax Relief, the actual report that has been updated as of November 2020 with the COVID recommendations. Alfonso was a part of the group, and I don't know if he had an opportunity to really go into detail about the report that he and the late brother Jack McNamara released, even prior to the Illinois Property Tax Relief report coming out. NPR highlighted their work that focused on, from 1918 to about 1950, the issue in Chicago with the resident covenants. So when we talk about, and I would really like for Brother Alfonso to have a moment to speak, and I'll wrap up. When we talk about the issues that are going on in Illinois, not just Illinois nationwide, but right now we're talking about Illinois, Cook County, the city of Chicago. This has been extremely strategic. Brother Alfonso is going to touch base on 1960s and prior, and I'm going to segue back in to prove that the city of Chicago created the resident covenant process all over again yes, and then the county changed property tax ID numbers to put homeowners into foreclosure court.
Whoa.
So let's be clear about what's really going on. The state legislators are clear on the issues, okay? Go to Facebook, Illinois Property Tax Relief. If you go there, you will see the hearings that IDOR documented. Let's be clear. They understand what the issues are. Please, Brother Alfonso, can you give us an overview and background of that report that you worked on with Brother Jack McNamara?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having me. I think, this is a very important issue as we're talking about here, and I'm fascinated by the data that we're given today. Essentially, the report that I did with Jack McNamara, who unfortunately passed this past Labor Day. Jack McNamara, as you may know, was the lead organizer for the Contract Buyers League back in the 60s. And essentially what they organized against was a predatory practice called contract sales, essentially for housing. And just to kind of run you down a little bit about what this all was, and forgive me if you already know this, but again, during the second Great Migration, a lot of African Americans moved to cities like Chicago. And at the same time, there were veterans coming back from the war. And so there was a big shortage of housing. And at the same time, there were racist practices from the national level, such as redlining, which excluded certain neighborhoods from getting accessing mortgages, conventional mortgages, FHA mortgages, which helped a lot of the white neighborhoods build wealth over time. And so these maps or these redlinings, of course, were based on, things like how many African Americans were living in the area, essentially excluded. It was targeted specifically these communities, African American communities, and some Hispanics and so on and so forth, but it's mostly African American. At the same time, as Justina was saying, there was restrictive covenants in which neighborhoods came together saying, we will not sell the house whatsoever to any African American. And if you try to do that, we can reappropriate the house. I mean, it was this agreement that the neighborhoods had. So essentially, what happened then is it created a secondary market in which African Americans then were left to buy houses in a specific neighborhoods, right? Because they were not allowed in most of Chicago. So what happened? White real estate speculators ended up blockbusting neighborhoods such as North London. And what they did is essentially they said, the African Americans are coming, you better sell, your house. Essentially scared white people out of their homes. Bought the house, and a couple of weeks later sold it to an African American family for double, sometimes triple the price under contract for sale. Which contract for sale, it is a type of it is a tool for buying a house that essentially carries all the costs of being a homeowner and the renter, and none of the benefits for either. Meaning, you have to pay for the house, you have to pay for repairs, you have to pay for insurance, you have to pay for taxes, and you build absolutely no equity in this time. Meaning that if you miss a payment, you can get kicked out without any explanations, without any type of protections. And so what ended up happening is, throughout the city of Chicago, one of the very few only ways that African Americans could buy a house was through this practice of contract selling, because there was even a banker in our study. We found that only one banker would give out loans in the whole city of Chicago. Would give out loans to African Americans. So what we ended up going back to the Cook County Recorder of Deeds, and essentially track out this data of how much the white speculator buy the house for, how much did he sell it to the African American family for, and through the term of the contract, how much more did the African American pay than if they would have been white and buy the house through a conventional FHA.
That is so outrageous.
And so what we found out is that in between 1950 and 1970 alone, there was a plunder of about $3.2 to $4 billion from African American families, and this was only on extra that they paid. This does not take into account any repairs to the house. It does not take into account any extra taxes. It does not take into account the depreciation of the houses. But what ended up happening is there's such high costs of the house in such short term that perhaps you have to move in another family, or perhaps you cannot afford to fix the furnace. And so this is how houses deteriorate. And what we ended up finding out later as well is that when we took a sample of our data, about a third of those houses no longer exist or are vacant, meaning that even though they might have paid for them through blood, sweat, and tears, To this day, they were worth nothing. They even had to probably pay the city or pay the county to demolish the houses. So this is an example of a practice that was specifically targeted and facilitated by the city. Essentially, Jack McNamara would always tell us stories about when, people from, officials would come up to Jack, and one of them specifically said, you shouldn't really be messing with this. You shouldn't be able to find out stuff. Just leave that alone, right? Everybody was on it. Mayor Daley was very much on it. And essentially what would do is that the speculators then would sell these contracts around the city. So doctors, lawyers would then have, a piece in the game, right? Through the accessibility to FHA mortgages, and from taking the money from these African American communities, because they have a piece of the skin in this contract, right? And so it's a transfer of wealth from one part of the city to the other. So this is essentially a little bit of what we find out, and I can share the report with you here in the chat.
Thank you. Whoa. That's some devastating stuff.
Can I piggyback on?
Yes.
So by 1990, 1991 or so, the city of Chicago, Richard M. Daley, the son of Richard J. Daley, old man Daley, right? He in turn, he was the mastermind behind the new homes ordinance in the city of Chicago. Alfonso's shaking his head. He's familiar. The new homes ordinance was initially it was to integrate the communities to make them mixed income and bring in other ethnic groups to the west sides and south sides of Chicago. Well, they threw these homes up within a few months. They started initially on in the Austin community near Jackson and Cicero. They put these beautiful homes up that looked like they were in the suburbs on the hill, but they put them on the same blocks with Mercy Housing Section 8 residents. They literally set the situation up to the point where even the association, the housing association, stopped right where the legacy families who had lived on the block began. So the way that the city of Chicago set the program up with Shore Bank being the funding source, receiving low-income housing tax credits through the federal government, the city of Chicago had all of these homeowners sign a resident covenant. The resident covenant, we later found out through the Cook County Recorder of Deeds office and the Cook County Assessor's office, that 3 to 5 homeowners shared that same tax ID number on that signed city of Chicago resident covenant and mortgage that was recorded in the Recorder of Deeds office. When the Recorder of Deeds office was notified of the improprieties in the land records, we were told it was a mistake, and 2.5 pages of land records disappeared down to a half a page, as if those mortgages of those homeowners and neighbors and those shared accounts never existed. Now, let's be clear. When the city of Chicago released those resident covenants based on the agreement that those homeowners would live in those properties for 4 to 5 years, the homeowners were supposed to receive annually credits, low-income housing tax credits for moving into that area, number one. And number two, it was discounted on their mortgages, in addition to the fact that their property taxes were paid through escrow in their mortgages. Once the homeowners had their lived out the full 4 to 5 years, the city released the resident covenant, the county changed the tax ID numbers, all of the history of the prior tax payments disappeared. And those homeowners were told by the county that they owed 2 years of property taxes. By the third year, they could foreclose. Whomever bought those 2 years of back property taxes. So we filed FOIAs. Several FOIAs were filed. No one would respond. I've been downtown reviewing records in the Recorder of Deeds office, and they were literally destroying microfiche in the basement of land records. And I red flagged the Cook County Assessor's office. Everything's documented. And I told them the Recorder of Deeds office has to follow the State Records Commission process before they can delete or destroy any records. The county has a process in place before you can destroy or delete any records. Next thing I know, several elected officials, as I come upstairs, they're all up there. So once again, for clarity, they know what's going on.
They know what's going on.
Sitting elected officials know what's going on. But what we should be concerned about is the unethical practices that they are involved in regarding housing. Whoa. Why are they the gatekeepers to the housing issue when they can bring the solutions? What we need in Illinois are recall laws. We don't need to keep running against them. Let's recall them out of office for not doing their job effectively. It's very simple. I digress. Thank you.
Let me say this, because one of the things that we found out from Brother Raven is that while this episode was going on in Cook County, the Metropolitan Planning Commission put out a report that Raven told us about. Segregation cost the Black community $4 billion. Segregation cost us $4 billion. Then come along the tax divide, where Dr. Christopher Berry said the assessor, going back to Thomas Hines, in office for 18 years. And he was the one who started to devalue property, commercial property. Then he moved it over to residential property. Then he handpicked Houlihan, who said he was going to fix everything. Houlihan didn't fix nothing. There was a lawsuit by O'Keefe law firm that's been on the books for almost 12 years. Then we get Joe Barrios in office. So Joe Barrios started to overvalue our property, over-assess our property, and overtax us. So when Dr. Berry said it cost us $2.2 billion, and then segregation cost us $4 billion, and now with the Bloomberg article, we're at $500 billion. Folks, it don't take a rocket scientist to understand that the Black community is under siege.
We understand.
And it's been like this for almost 70-some years in the housing industry. And when we sat on the task force, all the people names I mentioned,
TJ,
we had an opportunity, the Democrats, to really do something wonderful for our state. But what they gave us, this is what's going to mess you up. This is what the Democrats told us. They said, this is why they said they can't do nothing about these issues. They said there can be inherent political complications to merging units of government. Now, mindful, when TJ gave the opening remarks about me talking about the Constitution, well, under Article 7, Section 12, write that down, folks. Article 7, Section 12, that deals with the implementation of government change. That article gives the legislator the power to consolidate, liquidate, merge, get rid of all debt in all these municipalities. They can get that right from the Constitution. But the Democrats is telling us Xing units of government have, this is the key word, folks, they have elected officials that hold these spots. And they may have friends and family together with vendors and contractors who rely on its continual existence. So what are they saying? They saying because we got friends and family members who got jobs, who got contracts, is more important than fixing what's alienating not only Cook County, but Illinois. That is a slap in our face.
It is. Anthony, you got two people wanting to say something. TJ,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, TJ.
Well, first I want to say, Ms. Winfrey, you mentioned recall laws. Those are, like you said, especially important. But I believe that running could be just as important because it cements to the politician that their services are no longer wanted because what they're doing is no longer accepted by the community in which they represent. Then, speaking on the Democrats, first, Anthony, the question is, what Democratic source did you get it from? The Democratic Party of Illinois? Did you get it from individual Democratic politicians?
That comment that I just read to you,
yes,
that came out of the Democratic report from the task force. See, the Democrats put together a report as well. Our subcommittee put together a report. And I know I'm excuse me, I'm sorry, but I'm glad that Representative Sam Yingley had the balls to put that statement in there. Because he told us that, hey, we can't do nothing because hey, my friend got a job, my family member got a job, my buddy got a contract. So that's why we ain't gonna do nothing.
All right.
And one sec. Okay. And to that point, when we consider that is a report sanctioned by the Democratic Party of Illinois, because that's a party that, or that's a report that's statewide, your elected officials, whom are Democrats, do have a say in who their chairman is for the party and who their vice chairman and who their leaders are. So also, your elected officials must represent you. You're tired of the Democratic Party leadership right now. You need to vote for somebody who is believing the same thing, that we are tired of these Democrats and that are the chairmen and vice chairmen and directors of individual categories of the party. You have to make sure that they are aligned with what you say. That's the number one thing. All of these problems you can see that there are results of ineffective leadership.
Exactly. TJ, oh boy, you capped it. You capped it. Livette.
Well, I would like to say that he is a hard pill to follow. Because those are my sentiments exactly, TJ. It is a pathetic kind of situation when we're talking about all of these people in their ineptness to lead. And it goes back to a conversation I had with my 25-year-old granddaughter the other day, because she gave me an opinion about something as her grandmother, and she was pretty much correct. And she said, because I asked, why don't you participate and why don't you have more conversations with me about things of political nature? She said, because, not me, but she said, because young people are not being heard. And I said, I guarantee you, if someone like you were to step up to the plate, I would make sure that I got behind you, not because you're my granddaughter, because I think you're very opinionated, and I would get people to see that we need new leadership. So we need to prime some of these young people and let them know that their voices are appreciated as TJ's is, that they have the wherewithal to lead us. Yes. And so, but not to ignore the wisdom that can come from us in guiding them. So let us be in it together where there's no division, with intergenerations coming together to combat the foolishness that I'm hearing every day, because it's like you're fed up. And so if you're fed up, what are you going to do about it? And you got to have a purpose for this. And all of this information could almost be separate shows in itself. But we have to really unite behind new leadership. And so that's got to be done on the grassroots, and right now, not tomorrow, but today, as TJ is definitely in the lead for someone to be behind him when he becomes of age to take leadership.
Absolutely. And we're going to close with Andrea. She has had her hand up and she is the lady of the hour. Please, Andrea.
Well, I think this has been a dynamic conversation. It's an important conversation. I like the fact that we have DJ listening on this. He could be the next governor of Illinois, like 8 years from now. But these are critical issues that are so important. And sometimes when we see how many problems we have and we just, we just almost want to throw our hands up, there are solutions to these problems. And we have to work together as a team.
Yeah.
And you got to get everybody involved.
Yeah.
Generations, Black, white, Hispanic, everybody. Got to get, and not everybody agrees on everything, but we do agree that the property tax system is grossly unfair. It favors whites, it favors wealthy, and it is even the tax breaks that they give favors too many of the 1% of the wealthy people. And I know we don't have much more time, but Anthony was involved in a very important study called the foreclosure study, where ABC went to his house and recorded the fact that, his house, he got his house back after it was almost auctioned off for $24,000. And then the assessor says it's worth $70,000 when it was being auctioned for 24. So we did this foreclosure study, and they made a law the last 10 years that if you are in an area where there's a dense foreclosure, the assessor should take consideration of these foreclosures and can put it in the formula to reassess these properties on the lower side. And all 101 counties got it, except for Illinois. Joe Barrios said, I don't want it, so he didn't give it to Illinois.
Wow.
Cook County, Andrew.
Yes, it's Cook County. So only Cook County doesn't have it. All the 101 counties have it. And we've been trying the legislature 3 years to try to get it passed. And now they're trying to repeal it from all the 101 counties. And even Katie said, on the radio, Katie said, we need to look at the Black and brown communities that have all these foreclosures and consider it. But he's not out advocating for our foreclosures in Springfield, Senate Bill 1725, to get that passed so that we can be kinder and gentler to neighborhoods that are ravished with foreclosure.
Hey, Wanda.
Wait. You got Reven on here. Reven's
Go ahead, Reven.
Good evening. I'm just going to be brief. I want to thank our distinguished guests who came in to speak, that spoke, and I want to extend special all-out respect for Justina and Brother Travis. They've done a job that's beyond imagination with no funding, no money, and legal. Justina is just everything documented. So I want everybody on this phone to understand, between Justina, myself, and Travis spent his money for a whole year with the Tax Doctor show. Myself and Justina sit on there every day on Harold Davis show down there. And Justina has had her website and her show. And so I don't want anybody to be clear that everybody in the world knows the strategy, the answer. We did town hall meetings where we packed it throughout this city in the evenings. We did not have our hearings in the morning at 10 o'clock when everybody, we had them in the evening at 7 o'clock. We spent our gas money, our time. We sat with Representative Mary Flowers for almost 3 months for free and put together the most powerful document ever of the history research. And still, so I say to TJ and us, our children are waiting on us. We are their future. we have to stand up and fight like the Latino community does for their children. And we need to make a position so that he can see that we're with him. But we are sitting down and we're the first God's chosen people. And our children are being foreclosed, closed out of schools, schools being closed, shot down, and everything. We have to make a decision as Black people, Black women, and Black men. We're going to make a stand for the living and the dead and unborn. And I thank you for this time. God bless everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Anthony, you wanted to close?
Yeah, let this be part one. We got to come back next Wednesday, and we got to keep coming back till we put an end to this crisis.
Thank you, Anthony.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Peace out, everybody. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.